Hi, everyone. My name is Michael. I major in linguistics, and this is my Keystone project. I wrote 3 short pieces in the 1980 tuning system, which is a system that extends the current Western tuning and allows for greater expressive freedom, while at the same time retains the familiar aspects of the current system. So my presentation is mostly about the background of tuning systems and what 1980 is about. I'll play a few short snippets at the end of the pieces I wrote. So I would like to first thank my advisor, Professor Richard Cornell, for his many helpful tips and just overall guiding me through the process. Let's get started. So a tuning system is just a set of notes to write and perform music. It tells you how many unique notes you can choose from and how high or low they are compared to a bass note on the left, as shown on the screen here. The current Western tuning is called the 12-tone equal temperament. It just means that you have 12 unique notes to choose from. And those notes get repeated in the lower and higher registers. It's been the dominant system for hundreds of years in the West, and pretty much all the music we've heard in the West, from classical to jazz to pop, uses this kind of tuning. The reason it's held up so well is that notes sound great together. Something that many cultures in the world have agreed on is that when you play a note against another note, in this case, the bass note, they sound better if the frequency ratio between those two notes are simple, for example, 3:2. And they sound less good if the ratio is more complex, for example, 19:13. So the 12-note system happens to approximate some of the simplest ratios we could find, represented by the dots on the screen. So you may notice that the notes in our current tuning, represented by the vertical lines, don't quite line up with exact ratios, which means that our 12 notes are actually slightly out of tune. This is done deliberately because there's actually a trade-off between sounding perfect and being flexible. Sounding good just means that you can build good sounding chords from the notes, and being flexible just means that you have many chords, different kinds of chords to choose from. It's actually not possible to have it both ways. Let me show you what I mean. So when we tune everything perfectly, as shown right here, it only works in one key, which basically means that we can only build good sounding chords based on one note, for example, the C note, here pointed by the red arrow. So if you want to change keys, you pretty much have to tune all the other notes. You can see that when you change keys, the vertical lines don't line up with the dots anymore. So retuning is pretty easy to do on a string instrument like a violin, because you can play basically anywhere on the fingerboard. The pitch class is continuous. But once you tune a piano or build a guitar, you're pretty much stuck with the notes you first tuned it to, and it takes a lot of effort to retune everything, and especially you can't retune it during a performance. So here I'll play a piece that starts on C major, which would sound perfect because this is tuned in C. But when it switches to G flat major, it's a different key, and you hear it's much less pleasant. So instead of the mess we just heard, we want a song to play in any key and have it sound nice, and ideally sound the same as before. So the way to do it is to tune everything slightly off in a very specific way, namely to make all the pitches the same distance to each other, so that one could play in any key and have it sound great. So this is the reason that we came to use the 12-tone equal temperament. So this is the piece again, but in the current standard tuning. So 12-tone equal temperament has been in widespread use in the West for at least 200 years. In the mid to late 1900s, some composers have felt limited by the 12-tone system, and some have advocated for using a tuning system with more than 12 notes. But where would you find these new notes? We can kind of go back to this diagram. On the screen, we already have the simplest frequency ratios. These are the green dots. And a good way to extend the current system is to find ratios that are a little bit more complex, but still simple enough so they play well with the existing harmony. So like these one up here. So these are the 7 limit harmonies if you want to look it up. So we just need a tuning system that can capture all of these in a relatively few number of notes. This is where 19 EDO come in. 19 EDO just means 19 equal divisions of the octave. And it gives us a lot more things to play with. So in this new system, most sharp and flat notes are no longer the same. For example, A sharp and B flat are 2 separate notes, or E sharp are not the same as F. But even with these new additions, everything we're familiar with still translate to the new system. Our sharp will raise a note by chromatic semitone, just like before. And everything from major, minor chords and conventional chord progressions still work perfectly fine in 19 EDO. For those that are more theory inclined, here are the intervals. And you can see that all of these are familiar terms we encounter in standard tuning. It's just that we get 7 more notes and who knows how many new chords to choose from. This is the greater flexibility and expressive freedom we're getting. So now you may say, don't we have to trade some tuning accuracy for this? Yes, it's a little complicated, but you can have a listen right here. Oh. Where's the, oh, right here. So unless you have a very good ear, you might not have noticed, but that was 19 EDO. Considering that most people don't realize our current tune system is actually a little out of tune, you could argue that with enough exposure, people would get accustomed to the new tuning. What's even better is that 19 EDO doesn't require new symbols for sheet music at all. And that's like a huge bonus and what makes it stand out among other tuning systems with more than 12 notes. So here's a little chart comparing some of the other tuning systems. The closest competitors like 22 EDO that uses 22 notes and 24 EDO that uses 24 notes, they would need half sharps and other symbols like up and down arrows and the other symbols that are not standardized at all. And this is not to mention how the chords work in those systems get insanely complicated. So hopefully I've convinced you that 19 EDO system is a good system to write music in. Now onto my project. So I wanted the 3 pieces I was writing to follow a kind of gradation that the composer Easley Blackwood came up with. From consonance, where everything sounds pretty nice, to dissonance, where there are some tense moments, to discordance, where things are distinctly unfamiliar. So in the first piece, I aimed for an introductory tone. I used conventional progressions to demonstrate that everything we have right now still works perfectly well with the new tuning. Then in the second piece, I'll start to explore the new harmonies and mixing it with the familiar chords to see how they interact. And in the third and final piece, I fully embrace the unfamiliar sounds and fully explore those new intervals in the chords. It's more of an experimental piece. So I'll play the short snippets, they're like 10, 15 seconds long. And you can find all the pieces in full in this link below. This is the second one. That's my presentation. Thank you very much.